So fellas, none of the stuff that I'm about to tell you does not work if you have not put in the effort and put in the time in the offseason to work on your game and to work on your skills to where it becomes second nature, where you're almost operating on autopilot, where you don't have to think about certain things involving your game. Like for a receiver, for example, when you're running a route and let's say you got to drop your hips and you're running like a comeback route, for example, in an actual live game setting with what I'm about to tell you, you're not able to think about like, how should I drop my hips? Should my foot placement be here? It needs to be second nature and it needs to be muscle memory, right? So none of this stuff works if you do not have your skills down to a point where you can operate on autopilot like that, okay? So what I'm going to talk to you about today is something was probably the single best piece of advice I ever got as a player. And as I got older, I really understood kind of like the nuances of what this is. And that's being mentally present and in the present moment, taking things one play at a time during actual live competition. So I get a million questions from a lot of different athletes. We respond to every single question that we get on our YouTube channel. I'm constantly answering DMs on Instagram because I want to interact with athletes, right? I want to give you guys as much value as possible, whether it's one-on-one talking or whether it's through a video, right? And we get a lot of athletes that are like, you know, coach, I do the work, but I feel like I can't perform well. You know, I've put in a bunch of time in the offseason, but my coaches still aren't noticing me. What can I do? I have a ton of nerves and anxiety, and I feel like that hinders my performance during an actual game. What can I do to solve all that? And being in the present moment and being just like mindful, like they call it just mindfulness, if you will, that's the key to really all success. And all of the top tier athletes, all of the best performers at whatever they do, they all have this skill and they're all able to perform this skill. And there are ways that you guys can think about it, especially if you're not there yet. So that's what this video is going to be ultimately about. So being in the present moment is just being focused and keeping things simple and keeping your mind on one thing. And that thing specifically in sports is what your job actually is, right? Personal example for me, right? Because I don't play any sports anymore, right? But in my day-to-day life, I have a bunch of different tasks that I need to accomplish, right? Like I make a ton of videos, I run and operate a business, we travel across the country every single year for camps, so there's a lot of logistics that go into that. I'm having to call people to get a field reservation, and then I also own another business with my brother, which is more like a dietary supplement business, so we're constantly having to fulfill orders, handling customers, and just daily business stuff, right? So I probably have severe ADHD. That's just the way I was born, where I have 20 different windows open at a single given time in my head. This is the way that my mind works, and I wouldn't change it, to be honest with you. But you can get sidetracked and you get distracted very easily when you have a million things to accomplish, right? So as a football player, as an athlete, you don't necessarily have a million different windows open, but you have a very specific job that you need to do. And I find that these strategies that I'm about to talk to you about help me focus on one thing and take things one task at a time so I can be efficient in what I am doing one task at a time. So as a football player, the whole like, hey, take things one play at a time, one rep at a time. Everybody says that. It's a cliche phrase that coaches love to say, but it's actually the best advice that you guys can understand. And now, what does that mean? What's an example of that, right? So I played quarterback in high school. So in high school, you know, when I was like a newer player and I didn't have a lot of varsity experience, my first couple games on varsity, you're worrying about a lot of things, right? So you're about to take a snap, you're worried like, man, the line didn't block too good on this play in practice. Is the receiver going to run the right route? Is he going to catch it? Like, what's the defense doing? And you have all this stuff going on in your head because as a quarterback, you have a ton of responsibilities. It's the hardest position in all of sports, in my opinion. So you have a lot of different things that you have to accomplish. But when you break things down extremely simple, what is your job as a quarterback in a game? Make the right read, deliver an accurate pass. On a run play, hand the ball off and carry out your fake. There are other things that go into it. Maybe you have the freedom to change the play based on a coverage, and that goes into your responsibility. I come up to line, identify the coverage. Do I need to change the play? Okay, on this play, that's my read, set, go. And you keep things very simple. Now, that could be a strategy that you guys can really use at any given position. As a receiver, what's your job? Run the right route correctly versus whatever coverage you have and catch the ball. As a lineman, you have a specific way to block a certain player. That is all that should be on your mind. If you haven't done the work and you haven't put in a ton of effort in the off-season training to develop your skills, it's going to be very hard to do that efficiently. You could have all the mindfulness in the world. You could be very, very good mentally, but if physically you're not there, you're not going to be able to perform. Will you perform better than if you had a million things on your mind? Yes, but it needs to be a balancing act of both. That's why training is so important for athletes. That's why I even work with athletes. It's all about developing consistency and turning habits into muscle memory. So you need to have that, but you also need to have the mental aspect of the game as well. Now, a lot of athletes struggle struggle with that. A lot of athletes can't stay focused and take things one play at a time. It's about taking things one play at a time. And as soon as that play ends, you're focused on the next play, and that's what your job is, okay? Whether it was a positive or whether it was a negative result, once that play ends, you are on to the next play. Once that play ends, you're on to the next play. Your team comes off the field because the series is over, you got a defensive stop, maybe they scored a touchdown, whatever. You go to the sideline, the second you get back onto the field, all you're thinking about is what is my job and what is my responsibility, play in and play out, okay? Now, that's much easier said than done. It takes some practice, and in practice with your team, you need to be practicing this like mindfulness. You need to just be where your 2 feet are standing at the entire time, or in the entirety of an actual play. Okay, so I'm not thinking, am I running the route versus is this coverage here? What if this side does this? What if the quarterback gets pressure? What if this? I'm only can control what I can control. So that's all you should be worried about, is what you can control. Your attitude and your effort are the 2 things that you could control. Now, again, like I said, athletes want to get to a point where they're in something called a flow state. Now, I'm sure many of you have heard like what a flow state is, or maybe have heard that term before, maybe you haven't. But a flow state is where you're just pretty much just performing without almost even thinking about it. You're just in the present moment. Your skills are taking care of themselves because you've had enough reps and enough muscle memory of a specific skill to where you can do that, and you're just focused on the things that you could control in a competitive environment, okay? Now, like, think of it like fighting. Everybody understands fighting because everybody knows what fighting is. Everybody's thrown a punch before. Everybody's either gotten in a scrap at school or maybe in whatever situation or seen somebody. Think about a professional fighter, a boxer, UFC fighter, whatever the case may be. He's not in the ring thinking about like, okay, should my jab, like I need to tuck my shoulder a little more, I need to rotate my back foot when I throw a straight. He's done thousands of reps of that. All he is thinking about is the fight strategy. What is his game plan? Okay, I need to cut off this angle, I need to do this. He may not even be thinking about that. He may just be like vibing in the ring and just doing what he does. That's ultimately the level that every athlete should aspire to be, even in a football sense. As a quarterback, I'm not thinking about my arm path. I'm not thinking about my stride. I'm just thinking about, okay, I'm gonna throw the ball here, I'm gonna do this, and I'm just worried about the read and what my job is as a player. If you can get to that point, you will never have a bad game, in my opinion, but it's a combination of both. It's a balancing act. It's the mental side that we are discussing now, and it is the physical side of what we are discussing. So, something that I do, and I got this in a book, and I recommend it's a book that all of you should read. It was a book by the guy who was kind of like, he was hired by Phil Jackson, so for those of you that maybe know me well, you guys know I'm a huge Michael Jordan fan, Chicago Bull fan, like Kobe Bryant fan, like those 2 guys. Like those are guys that are just like amazing athletes, but the way they approach the game, their mentality, all that stuff, I love that stuff, right? Like most guys are gravitated towards that because that's just the way we're wired, right? And so this guy wrote the book, I forget his name, but the book is called Mindfulness for Athletes. And he was essentially like the mental coach that was hired for the Bulls, and he was hired for the Lakers when Phil Jackson was the coach, right? And this guy does a lot of like Buddhism like principles, if you will. And again, like, you know, if you're a Buddhist or not, I'm assuming most of you are not Buddhist, I'm not, but there's a lot of good stuff in there that can really apply to athletes and just people in their general life and just their day-to-day life, you know what I mean? So essentially what he talks about in the book is how important your breath is, how important it is to breathe in these types of situations where you are trying to just hyper-focus on one specific task. So that's something that I've adopted into my daily life, and I found that I am way more productive and way more focused throughout the day. If I get into a situation where I am not focused or something distracts me, I just focus on my breathing and I recenter myself in the present moment. So within the book, he talks about how when his career first got started, he was like a former drug addict, and when he first got into this whole like mindfulness stuff, it helped him recover, but he started working with guys who were in prison. Right? So bad dudes, like gonna be in prison for a long time, and they felt a lot of shame about themselves. And I have a point with this, and I'm gonna relate this to athletics, of course, but they felt a lot of shame about themselves as to why they were in prison in the first place, right? And so in prison, you're constantly reminded about the mistakes that you've made, right? And his argument was like, if you're a person, like if you were like an inmate, and you're constantly thinking about your past mistakes, like you should definitely learn from your past mistakes, but if you're constantly thinking about that, you're living in the past and you're not in the present moment, which ultimately distracts you you from the progress that you were trying to make or the things that you were trying to do or growing from the situation, whatever it might be. So he was talking about how he'd have these like almost like therapy sessions with inmates. And what would happen is that in the prison, because obviously it's prison, the warden would get on like the loudspeaker and give them like instructions or have some type of news about the prison or what they're doing, whatever the case may be. And he found that the prisoners, as soon as they would hear the warden's voice, they would get distracted, they wouldn't focus on the therapy session that they were in, and they would be filled with rage and they would get upset and they would get depressed because it's just a constant reminder of where they are. They are in prison and they have made a ton of mistakes and they feel a bunch of shame, and it doesn't help them move past from that and move on to bettering their life. So what he gave them is he gave them a strategy, was to just focus on their breath in that situation. Whenever their mind went somewhere else from what they were doing, when they heard the warden talk on the loudspeaker for the prison, he taught them, focus on your breath. And you do 3 deep inhales. So you inhale through your nose and you want to try to focus on your breath going through your whole body. I know this sounds kind of out there, but I highly recommend you try it, you guys. But they would inhale and they would pay attention to the breath filling their lungs, going down to their stomach, then they would exhale. And all they think about in that moment is their breath, okay? So how do we relate that to athletes? Because what he found was that that would recenter the inmate, and in that session that they have, they could get back to being focused and they wouldn't be thinking about their past mistakes. They'd just be thinking about their breath and just focus on their breath. And it has a weird way of almost like tricking your mind to get you back to that present moment. So as an athlete, what can you do? What do I do personally, right? Like for example, in the morning when I go lift, because I lift every morning, 5 a.m. club, right? I'm at the gym early because it's just the way my schedule works out. If I'm working out and let's say I get distracted, right? Like let's say there's a really attractive girl or something like that. And I, like look over because I'm human. And I'm distracted from the lift that I'm trying to do. I take 3 deep breaths. And I just focus on the breath going in and the breath exhaling out. And it recenters me. I get back to focus. I'm able to do my exercise and I get more out of the workout. I'm more efficient. I'm not in there as longer. I'm not distracted. I'm focused on the muscle that I'm trying to grow. Same idea as an athlete, you guys. So if you're in a game scenario, let's say it's a big game. Let's say there's a big crowd. Let's say the opposing crowd is yelling something at you and you find yourself getting distracted. You're thinking about the crowd. You're not thinking about what you actually have to do as an athlete. Find your breath. Take 3 deep breaths where you just pay attention to your breath in, pay attention to your breath out. And that will recenter you to be in the present moment where you're just focused on what your job is and how you can execute. Because a lot of coaches say that. A lot of coaches are like, hey, listen, just do your job. Do your job, do your job, one play at a time, one play at a time. And it's very easy to say, and it's an easy concept to understand, but it's much easier said than done. When you're a kid and you're in a game and there's a lot of distractions flying around, you got cheerleaders yelling, you got the crowd yelling, you got a player talking trash to you. If you can't find your breath, it's going to distract you from what you need to do and your performance is going to suffer. So you need to find your breath, and that will actually help you be more mindful, stay in the present moment, which will help you with athletic performance. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. I know that sounds a little bit out there to some of you guys. Now some of you guys are like, this weird coach is talking about this. I'm telling you right now, one of the most beneficial things that you can do, because you can have all the physical traits in the world, but if up here is screwed, your game is not going to be as high of a level as it should be. Now, with that being said, this also applies to success and mistakes in a live game scenario. So here's what a lot of athletes will do. They put themselves on this emotional roller coaster throughout a game. Right? They have a good play. Say you're a quarterback. Throw a 50-yard touchdown pass. You're jacked up. You're like, yeah. You get all fired up. And all you're thinking about is that good play. Man, that was a good throw. And then by the time that comes around, the next series is there. You're still thinking on the good throw. And then a bad play happens. Because it's inevitable. You're going to make a mistake. Nobody's perfect. Even Tom Brady wasn't perfect, right? So you throw a really bad pick. And because you're letting the emotions of the situation dictate how you feel about yourself and how you feel about the game and the way that you were thinking, now when you go to the sideline, you're going to be down on yourself. Man, that was awful. That was terrible. And we all know, we all can agree, if you're thinking about a bad play and you go out there on the next play and you're still thinking about that bad play, you're probably not going to play as well because your mind is elsewhere and you're thinking bad thoughts. You need to be even-keeled throughout a game. Throw a touchdown pass, yeah, get fired up, get excited, whatever. Get to the sideline, it's over. Next play. You have a bad play? Okay, I learned from it. Yeah, I know I screwed up there. Okay, cool. Next play. It's over with. And again, if you find yourself thinking about it, find your breath. And when you find your breath, it recenters you, it refocuses you on the job that you have to do. That's all I'm going to say about that, you guys. But again, I know that seems like it's out there. I get it. Sounds weird. Like the whole Buddhism thing, it's weird. I get it. But just trust me, you guys, when I say that your breath is so important to put you in that state where you are fully present, it's one of the best things you could do as an athlete, okay? So I hope that makes sense, you guys. So now, fellas, we're going to be answering some questions that you guys left on a previous episode of this show. So I always enjoy that. So guys, if you have questions, do not hesitate. Post those in the comment section below. Those of you that follow our YouTube channel, you guys know the deal. I read and respond to literally every single comment. So guys, hope you guys leave a comment. The best ones will feature on the next episode of our show. Now, before we get into our questions, you guys, if you are a QB or wide receiver watching this video and you would like to train with myself and my staff of coaches for 2 days, where you're going to be traveling out to 15 different cities across the entire U.S. for 2-day long QB and wide receiver training camps this year. So guys, go to that very first link in the description below if you want to sign up, if you want to get 2 full days of training with us. We limit spots, so like our camps are a little different. Like, you guys probably used to the camps where it's like 1 million people, go as fast as we can. You're out there for a couple hours, then you go home, you get a t-shirt, whatever. It's not what we do. We're about the training, we're about the work. You're there because, again, it's about how athletes develop. How can you develop muscle memory? You're going to learn so much throughout these 2 days. We're going to correct you. You're doing this wrong. You're doing that wrong. We slow things down, and you get a ton of reps because it's a small group environment. So guys, all of these camps will sell out because of that, okay? And we limit spots, like I said. So guys, we'll be coming out to San Francisco, California, Orlando, Florida, Phoenix, Arizona, Columbia, South Carolina. Then after that, we'll be heading out to Seattle, Washington, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, Nashville, Tennessee, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Austin, Texas, Atlanta, Georgia, Denver, Colorado. Then we'll be coming out to Columbus, Ohio, Boston, Massachusetts, Salt Lake City, Utah, and finishing it off in Los Angeles, California. So guys, hope we can see you there. Very first link in that description below. Okay, so let's answer some of your questions, fellas. So question number 1 here is going to be from Samuel Hurleyman. Thanks for the support, man. Hey, coach, my high school is small and we aren't a good team. I also have my junior year taken away from me because of transferring and only have senior year to prove myself to college coaches. Can I still go D1 with only 1 year of varsity experience and being on a bad team? So the question is, can you go D1 with only 1 year of high school film? I'll be real. It's extremely unlikely. The odds are definitely not in your favor, okay? So college coaches do their recruiting at that D1 level extremely early, and nowadays with the transfer portal, it's harder than ever to get an offer as a high school football player. So, with that being said, I still think it's possible. I've seen it happen before. It's definitely possible to get a scholarship offer with 1 year of film, don't get me wrong, but D1, it's very, very challenging. My best piece of advice to you is to try to build as many relationships with college coaches as you can this offseason. So, I would start an X account if you don't already have one. Follow coaches on there, DM them. You don't have any film to show for yourself, so you can't DM them your film and be like, hey, check me out. You got to DM them and be like, hey, listen, like, I was wondering if you have any college camps coming up. Camp happens. Go to that camp. Got to perform well. Get the coach's info. Follow up with him after the camp. And then next year, when you get your mid-season highlight tape, which is after 5 games, send it to him. And then when you get your full season highlight tape, send it to him there as well. But that's generally the process to do. Now, again, you could go JUCO, you could go to a prep school, and you'll have plenty of opportunities to get film and be able to get a D1 offer from there too as well. So that's the other route. So hope that answers your question, man. I appreciate you asking. Next question from Team Titan. Hey, coach, do you think it's possible to be recruited in D1 or D2 in 3A Florida? So if you attend a small school in either California, Florida, Texas, Georgia, the big football markets, you're going to be totally fine. Because kind of how college recruiting works is a coach from a school will go out to a state and he's like the recruiting coordinator for that state, right? So if you're in a small school, and let's say he goes to the big schools, right? In California, that's like the Mater Deis, the St. John Boscos. While he's there, if he's heard of a player at a small school, he will go to that small school and still go see the talent because like a small school in one of those states would probably be good enough to play at one of the massive schools in the not so big football state. So if you're in a big football state, you have a good chance. You just need to get film. So if you're at a small school and you're getting a ton of film, that's great, and that's highly what I would recommend to you, okay? So I hope that makes sense, man. I appreciate you asking that. Next question from IZ12345, this is more like a comment. One pathetic thing I'm starting to see more and more as parents is classifying their kids so they can play with younger kids. And from what I'm hearing, it's the coaches encouraging it because they're so obsessed with winning at any cost. And these are not normal overage kids. Most of them are big already for their age. Yeah, so it's a very popular thing, reclassifying or repeating the 8th grade before you go into high school for sports reasons. Let's call it what it is. It's just so they get an extra year of development, an extra year of skill training to be able to play at that next level. Now, I'm not against it. I can't sit here and say that it's wrong because I train tons of athletes who do it, right? It's part of the game. Should it be illegal? Probably, right? But it's not going to be illegal anytime soon, so it's just part of the game. 2 things I would say. If you're an an athlete who didn't reclassify and you're your correct age as a freshman, you got to work that much harder, dude, because the odds are stacked against you. But that's in life, bro. Like, that's honestly, like think about it. Like, let's say you want to start a business, and let's say it's an overcrowded business. Like, let's say you want to start a car wash, right? Why would people come to your car wash? You're going to have to work immensely hard. You're going to have to be creative. You're going to have to put in extra time to be better than the other car washes that are in your area, because that's just the way life works. So if you're a younger dude going up against older guys, they have that extra year of development on you. Life isn't fair. So you're going to have to outwork them in every single aspect and also outperform them to show that the age doesn't matter. I'm just that good. Now, on the other side of that, if you're the dude that does hold back, you can't take that year for granted. I see a lot of guys just like, I hold back, and they're lazy. They don't work hard because they know that they have an advantage, but actually that'll set you back even further. Now you're just older, but you're still not that good. So you need to make sure that you put that target on your back, like, hey, everybody's going to use this as a reason for why I'm better than them. I want to be better than them just simply because I'm better than them. So you need to also outwork all the competition, especially the ones that are now your age, because they also held back. So that's all I'm going to say about that topic, you guys. All right, fellas, thank you for tuning in. Hope this is able to help. Hope this gave you some value. If you guys have questions, like I said, do not hesitate. Post those in the comment section below. And if you want to sign up for one of our camps, go to that very first link in the description below. That's where you can get all the information. But we'll see you guys next time.